I think this is widely speculated for some time. You had a new chairman come in 2021 and a bit of a shuffle then. And I think there was also some speculation about a month ago that Wael was one of the candidates being considered. We always saw him as the front runner. I think he's very well respected by the investor community. He also runs Shell's biggest cash generator, so it makes sense. And obviously Ben's been there for 9 years now in that CEO role, which is a pretty long tenure. In terms of what are the bigger challenges? Ultimately, it's managing this energy crisis, managing the different stakeholders. You obviously have a lot of noise, as you talked about, on windfall taxes and so on, but also supplying the energy that Europe and the rest of the world needs alongside the pressures on the energy transition as well.
Biraj, you speak to clients all day long, I'm sure, in this space. I'm curious how they're feeling about Shell and the broader European energy sector right now. Clearly, they've been incredibly strong performers year to date. Shell up 38% year to date. But as you just outlined, they're now in this very difficult position where they're trying to manage the current energy crisis and deal with the windfall taxes that they're facing in many jurisdictions. At the same time, invest for the future.
Yeah, I think, and ultimately, the policymakers seem to be making very short-term decisions, which don't necessarily create a very conducive environment for these companies to invest more. And so you're seeing, in some ways, companies pause a lot because they don't know what fiscal frameworks they're dealing with. There's obviously supply chain issues as well. But there's a number of challenges that these companies have to balance alongside their, keep their existing core businesses running, which is supplying the energy that we need.
Well, Mr. Sawan was director of Shell's integrated gas and renewables arm. Do you think his appointment as CEO will give us any clues as to the strategic direction of Shell moving forwards?
To be honest, I think the strategic direction has been set out by Ben van Beurden is extremely clear. It's managing the core business and investing in a measured way in the energy transition. And I think what you'll see with Wael is more of a continuation of that strategy rather than wholesale changes. Ultimately, if Shell wants to transition its business, it takes significant amounts of capital to build a low carbon business, and they'll need the oil and gas business to fund their investments in the new business. So it's a balance between those both.
I also see that Mr. Sawan at some point was head of Shell Qatar, which I think is really interesting because in this environment, obviously, LNG is a major focus. As loads of European countries look to find alternative sources of gas, they are leaning more on LNG. Very interesting, given Mr. Sawan's background. And I also see that Shell have about a 20% market share in LNG globally. Do you think that LNG is going to be a big driver of returns for Shell going forwards?
Yeah, that's a huge differentiator. And again, the reason they are 20% market share in the LNG business was because Ben van Beurden spearheaded the BG deal, which I think at the time was seen as, maybe a good deal at the wrong price. I think with the benefit of hindsight, 8 years on, I think it only looks better at this point, given the market for LNG is extremely tight. So I'm sure they'll do more in LNG. They'll want to keep their market share in a growing market. They obviously entered into the Qatar LNG expansion recently, and there'll be plenty of more opportunities to come there.